Maybe that was the breaking news.
That was it.
Hi guys.
Hiya.
Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about siblings who have a sibling with disabilities, since siblings don't get a lot of attention in the world of disabilities. They seem to be the forgotten ones.
But they are our most important and long-lasting relationships. Our sibling relationships extend way beyond the times we live with our parents, and they extend beyond our relationship with our parents. So, there's very little research about sibling relationships, but there are a lot of great guidelines and helpful bits of advice. And one of the most helpful came from my friend Sherry here. So she can speak to the sibling relationship in her household.
Yes, I've always found a few extra sentences have gone a long way. For example, if my oldest son asks, how come his brother doesn't get sent to his room if he does something wrong, I explained to him about how his brother is not maturing at his biological age, and that he is developmentally younger than his age. So I have to, his brother's 14, and if he does something wrong, say maybe he's developmentally 8 or 9, I have to respond in a way that is his developmental age, not his biological age, so he will understand what he did wrong. And this seems to really help my older son in understanding his brother's disabilities. And I've always been very open about that with him, with anything, even his diagnosis, and understanding what that means. And I've never excluded him from any of that. Even when his brother had open heart surgery, his older brother was 3 at the time, I brought him with me to Boston. It was very difficult for us to have a toddler with us, but it was very important, and I've always included his brother.
Right, and that's one of the things that came up again and again in everything that I read, is to keep those lines of communication open and keep them developmentally appropriate. You want your typically developing child to have a connection with their sibling with a disability, and oftentimes they're not able to just naturally form those relationships or have that deeper connection, because there's a communication disability. Oftentimes they don't, kids with disabilities don't have the language or even the actual verbal skills to have a conversation with their siblings. So it's really up to parents to provide the information that the typically developing sibling needs to understand where their sibling is, what their needs are, and how to communicate with them, and how to have a relationship. I think what has to happen, or it sounds like has to happen, is something that happens in families who are all typically developing, is that we have to foster those relationships. We have to treat each child as an individual, and give the siblings time to be together in a way that's developmentally appropriate, because often typically developing siblings feel embarrassed or maybe a little fear, especially if there's a mental health or a behavioral concern. Then they might feel a little afraid or a little hesitant. It's really up to parents to take the extra time and to, like you said, just a couple sentences, so that they understand that this is a disability. It's not that their sibling doesn't like them or doesn't want to be with them.
And you also give your typical developing child the language to explain to friends, or if you're out in public, I think it gives them more confidence in handling situations, because they have a better understanding of what's going on with their siblings. So if a friend made a joke or something like that, or whatever, they have the words and the knowledge to explain it. And some of the reading that I've also did, which we'll put resources down in the comment section, raisingchildren.net is one of them. So it gives the typical developing child the language and the lingo to discuss with their friends, why their sibling may act a certain way, or or their speech is delayed, and they can explain it to their friends. Children don't know this stuff off the top of
Right.
their head like we do. So I think it's important for us to share that information and not exclude them from the conversations about their siblings that have special needs, to regardless of what it is. Even my older son, we've included him in everything with his brother. Diagnosis, surgeries, even if he's going to school, if his brother has a surgery, now that he's older, I will text him, your brother did fine. Because children worry about those things. They worry about their sibling. So as parents, we can do our typical developing child a disservice by not including them in those conversations and having them be a part of that and understanding it.
Absolutely. And like with so many things growing up, if you don't have a lot of information, you're gonna develop your own ideas, and sometimes that can lead to feelings of distance, a lack of connection, and again that fear of their sibling. Remember, these are very long lasting relationships. Your siblings are going to be with you long after your parents are.
Right.
So one of the things that I read about in one of our resources was first treating all of your children as individuals, and the other thing was like taking time with each individual child. And I know time is at a premium when you're raising children. There's work, there's home, there's economics. So these things are all tricky. But like Sherry said, sometimes it's just a couple of sentences. It could take 5 minutes. It could take 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. It could be like when you're folding clothes or doing something together that you say, hey, your brother is different. He doesn't communicate the same way he would if you were developing the way you do. And help them foster that empathy and understanding, because having a sibling with a disability can be a benefit for a typically developing child.
Absolutely.
It can build resilience and compassion, responsibility, and
they're typically more
empathetic, right?
Empathetic,
absolutely,
more kind, more caring towards other people. So there's a lot of benefits for your typical developing child. But it's important to include them in the conversation.
Absolutely, and give them the time. Also, we are well aware of the fact that a lot of times economically, families don't have a lot of time. We have two parents out at work, multiple children with needs and schedules and things like that. So you're going to rely, especially on older, more responsible students, children, to do things for you. Just be cognizant of the fact of where they are emotionally. Mm-hmm. Are they feeling burdened? Check in with them now and then. Say, hey, I know I've asked you 3 times this week to get your brother off the bus, and I really appreciate it. It's really helping the family function this week if you can do that for us.
And be careful of the responsibilities you ask them to do. Like, I've never asked my older son to assist his brother in the bathroom. For me personally, I don't think that's an appropriate thing to ask a child to do. That's a parent's responsibility or an older adult. There are some kids who may be comfortable with that.
And they may be ready for it
right.
or want to provide that kind of care for their
right.
sibling. They may have already made that connection to their sibling and they
right.
want to be that involved. And perhaps in the future, he'll be ready for it.
Right.
Ready for helping his brother in the bathroom and knowing that, and maybe in the future his brother won't need help in the bathroom, but
we're almost there. Right. And a daughter might be more willing to assist a brother with something like that.
That did come up in the research, is gender roles, birth order. They all impact how the typically developing sibling views their sibling with a disability. So be mindful of these. Take the time to have some conversations, even if you don't. I know you don't have any time really.
And one thing also in the research, it says make it your child's choice. Like suggesting, I'd appreciate it. Would you be willing to help, your brother or sister with their stretching exercises or whatever, and seeing if they're willing to do that at that time.
Yeah, I really like the article from Raising Children. That's an Australian organization. They talked about giving choices, and they also talked about having set responsibilities for people in the household, so that there isn't, the parents aren't saddled with everything, and that again, that makes it harder. But the kids feel involved in the household. Like, say that, this is this aspect. The dishes are your responsibility. The laundry is your sister's responsibility. So now one of you are going to have to pick up the slack with.
And your children with disabilities can have responsibilities around the house, even if it's feeding a pet.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that, that's going to be good for them, because that's going to build a sense of pride and accomplishment and connection to the family.
Right.
So don't undersell your child with disabilities, and keep them connected to the family. And you're going to find that those sibling relationships do develop, and they do become long lasting, and you reap the benefits from having a child in your household with a disability, because they are a joy, and they can bring so much to us. Again, those qualities of empathy, resilience, and responsibility can all be fostered through care for, and I'm going to say defense of. Like, when you are your sibling's negotiator in the world, maybe they have a communication disorder, maybe they sign instead of speak. The typically developing sibling gets to be a hero and say, hey, no, he's asking for water because he signed water. So you can be in on their language. And it can be a wonderful thing. It doesn't have to be a burden, or
it's not all negative. It's really just thinking outside the box and doing what works for your family.
And don't be afraid to reach out for help. Many areas offer in-home help for families with children with disabilities. Not everywhere has all the same helps and supports, but if it is available to you, don't be shy about reaching out. There might be somebody that can also help your typically developing child make those connections and deal with the responsibilities of having a sibling with a disability.
Yeah, when my older son was younger, they actually had a sibling group where all the typical developing siblings could go, and they would have groups, and there was a trained professional, and they would do art projects and stuff like that. And
that's excellent.
My son made a friend out of there. But then they can talk to another friend who's in the same circumstances they're in a safe environment, and if they have any concerns or things that they don't like about their sibling, just like us who have siblings, you can talk to another
safe
friend.
Place to talk about how I hate when my brother blares his music, or it really
Right.
annoys me that he doesn't have the same level of chores that I do. I mean, there could be a million things going on. But one of the things that the Sibling Leadership Network pointed out is that these relationships can really be fostered with a lot of clear communication and consistent roles and responsibilities, and that just the notion that everybody in the household has a task. Like, we've always treated our family as if it were a team. Like, is this good for the team?
Right.
Is this good for just you, or is this going to be good for the team? So we kind of have looked at it that way. Everybody has a role to play, and everybody is just as important as the next person. So those are just some suggestions. Again, check out the resources below, and there's a wealth of, there's not a wealth of research.
No.
There is a wealth of resources of people who care and have taken the time to put together some suggestions.
Yes, absolutely. If you like our content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. I'm Sherry. I'm a mother of a child with Down syndrome, and this is Roberta Curry, who is a special educator. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Like, share, subscribe.
Yes.